On this episode of the Irish History Boys, we travel back to 1975 and the curious kidnapping of a Dutch industrialist, not in the north, but in County Limerick. And meanwhile, across the water, what would become an infamous trial was unfolding. 4 accused in the dock. They would become known as the Guilford Four.
October the 7th, 1975, the kidnapping of Dr.Tiede Herrema. The hope still survives as we go to press that the kidnapped Dutch industrialist Dr.Tiede Herrema of Limerick is alive. His kidnappers, universally condemned for their outrage, must now realise their inability to enforce their demands on the Irish government for the release of 3 named prisoners. The issue is simple enough. Dr. Herrema's life has been put at risk by individuals who appear to have no support from any obvious quarter for their action. While the threat to his life continues, the grief and anxiety of his family increases as each day brings no response to the efforts of mediators and offers from the Dutch firm of ransom money.
Hello and welcome to the Irish History Boys with me, Cormac Moore.
And me, Tim McGarry.
Beautifully read.
I agree with you. I thought I read that rather beautifully.
I thought you would actually, yeah.
October the 7th, 1975, Irish News strongly condemning, as you would expect, the kidnapping of a Dutch businessman, Tiede Herrema, by IRA members who were looking for the release of Republican prisoners, 3 Republican prisoners.
One of them was Rose Dugdale.
Rose Dugdale, an interesting character herself.
Well, it actually reminds me of Paddy Hirst, who we discussed a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Rose Dugdale, obviously from a very wealthy background, from British kind of gentry, landlord class, and she literally goes off the rails,
right?
And she becomes a member of the IRA.
She meets some fella, falls in love with
Eddie Gallagher, who was the chief kidnapper in this case.
Yeah,
she actually was threw bombs from a helicopter.
She planned to through mines or something from a helicopter. She was involved in a couple of bank robberies and shootings.
And the famous paintings robbery in Rossborough House in Wicklow.
Yeah.
I think that's what she was arrested for and imprisoned. So she's in prison in Limerick.
So she's in prison along with 2 other IRA people, and these just 2 IRA people involved in this: Eddie Gallagher and Marion Coyle, am I right?
Or Brady, was it?
Marion Coyle.
Coyle, it could be Coyle, yeah. It was but no, there was more. There was other people as well.
So was this officially?
They were the 2 most prominent people.
Were they? Was it officially sanctioned then by the IRA?
No, it wasn't. It was. I think it was Rose Dugdale was pregnant with Eddie Gallagher's child when she got arrested, and she gave birth one in prison.
Right.
So, this is a kind of a way of her getting her out. It's a real desperate attempt.
Right.
It's a disaster from the get go. They capture Herma in he's Dutch industrialist. He's very popular as well, with staff, and this whole thing of fighters of the revolution, the whole working class will join up with us. It was very unpopular. The IRA kind of washed their hands of it as well.
Right.
And they didn't. Official the IRA, the actual GHQ or whatever you want to call it, did not sanction this. So it was a rogue move. But they actually capture him in Castletroy, bring him to lovely Laois.
Laois,
right?
Your county?
Very close to all this. A lot of this happens.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm
sorry about this.
So no, I think they bring him to Awfully First Kinnity, and then they bring Herma down to Mount Mellick,
right?
Which not a million miles from where I'm from, and then they bring him to this estate, St. Elvin's Park in Monasterevin, which is I'm from a place called Emo.
When you say estate, you mean housing estate rather than
housing estate. Oh yeah, not a land estate. So it's a housing estate. A few sympathisers. As far as I know, the sympathisers at the start did not know that they were they had a kidnapped person in their house.
Right.
So they end up in Monasterevin, which I'm from Emo in Laois, which is literally only about 5 miles from Monasterevin,
right.
Very close.
Right.
Monasterevin is in Kildare, but very close to Laois border. And then there's a massive search. This makes international news.
I remember it as an 11-year-old. I do remember. I remember the siege.
Yeah.
Because they eventually found them. I'm not sure how they found them, but somebody presumably grassed them up. I don't know what happened.
No, yeah, they found a guy was driving the car that Eddie Gallagher had been noticed in. So,
right,
and he knew what story, so he told them where they were.
Right.
So then they all laid siege to this estate in Monasterevin.
Yeah.
And
it went on for quite a few days, didn't it?
Yeah, I think it was about 36 days.
Was it long?
Over a month now. He was in captivity. And yeah, the army's there, the Gardaí are there, the international press are there. They even set up a kind of a camp area in the park, for all the journalists, and I think the journalists were all stealing the stew and all that that was meant to be for the army and the guards. So it was very kind of archaic to kind of set up for, but it went on for days, and like there was two people they were looking for, obviously Eddie Gallagher and Marion. It was Coyle, was it?
I think it was Marion Coyle.
Yes, that's right.
Well, I got it right. Yeah.
So, and she wanted the other person. One of the other people of the three that they wanted released was Kevin Mallon, and he was romantically involved with Marion Coyle. So there was a lot of romance.
This wasn't for Ireland at all. This is for get my boyfriend, get my girlfriend out. Was it?
If you don't start helping your boyfriend, how are you going to help Ireland? So yeah, they knew they were snookered. So their demands were that at this stage was that release the three Republican prisoners, get a plane, and then we'll go to the Netherlands, drop off Herma in the Netherlands, and then we'll go off to the Middle East or wherever, somewhere where we won't be extradited. So.
Somewhat unrealistic, shall we say?
Yeah, to put it mildly, and that's how they finally kind of give in. It's because they're running out of food, or like Eddie Gallagher's drinking his own urine on stage, so they're not in great shape.
I'd have given up long before that.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
absolutely. Even with the cause, it wasn't worth that. But yeah, so they're finally. The army were thinking like they had snipers there, so they were going like if you shoot Eddie Gallagher or Marion Coyle, then the other would kill.
Shoot.
That was that was the theory. So you can't shoot one of them without shooting both of them. So there never was a chance to do that. So
there's a slightly farcical element to this, but it's quite serious as well. I mean, Tiede Herrema, I think, said afterwards he was a Dutch man who was imprisoned by the Nazis during the Second World War, and he said the Nazis treated him better than he was treated as a kidnapped person by these people. It's not. This is pretty serious stuff.
He also said he got on okay with Eddie Gallagher. Like he developed a bit of a decent relationship with him, but Marion Coyle, he said, was just really cold. Couldn't get through to her at all. He said.
Right.
Look, can you imagine how traumatic it was for him? And look, these guys had records. They could easily have killed him. So that threat was always there.
And we also had the case, was it the year before, in Belfast, Thomas Niedermeyer, another industrialist who went missing. And
he died, obviously.
The IRA kidnapped him, and I think they asked for a ransom, but they kidnapped him, and then he disappeared, and I think he wasn't found for years.
1980.
Oh, that was shocking.
His head was, or what was left of his body was face down in a puddle or something.
Yeah, it looked like they shot him very quickly after the. And then had the cheek to ask for ransom demands after they'd killed him. It was a gruesome case.
And then he was Grundig, wasn't it? He was head of Grundig for Ireland. So it's not just about the IRA, about the war and kidnapping. It's about targeting industrialists from Europe, and they're running companies that have come to Ireland. And the threat this poses, and that's where the public have, like, there's obviously the public, I'm sure in most cases would have been against kidnappings in the first place.
Yes.
But secondly, to compound the issue, was they were actually attacking people who were leading companies that were giving jobs to people from abroad, and how hard it was to get companies to come over to Ireland, and then you're threatening them and you're actually kidnapping them and killing them.
Yeah.
And the kind of the knock-on effect for people desperately looking for jobs and for foreign direct investment, essentially.
Well, I suppose the IRA argument in the north, anyway, certainly not with Tiede Herrema in the south, it's slightly different, but in the north it would go economic war against the Brits and make Northern Ireland. I mean, they were blowing up all sorts of businesses and stuff, so arguably, kidnapping an industrialist prevents other people investing in Northern Ireland and helps them in their economic war against the Brits. Would be their argument.
Well, the IRA never accepted a free state, as they call it as well, so the last legitimate Dáil was the second Dáil.
Yeah.
So they didn't take receipts in Parliament. They and you still do hear some people say both the North and the South are failed states. So maybe there was this kind of belief. Well, we don't want the South to work either. So why would we want the economy to do well here, you know. We don't want to legitimise anything about the South or the North, you know.
So this was a massive. I genuinely remember it as a child. I remember the siege going on. I can't remember exactly how long it went on, but it was the glamour of a woman involved in the kidnapping and the glamour of Rose Dugdale. As well.
What do you remember? You remember the whole Rose Dugdale story as well?
Yeah, briefly. Yeah, not as much as I remember the siege. I remember they were outside this place for days and days. And I also remember the Balcombe Street gang. Do you remember their siege? You remember the Balcombe Street gang? Slightly later, is that 75, 76? Balcombe Street gang were the boys who really did the Guildford pub bombings, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And they had a siege. They were in a flat in London. They were caught in a flat in London.
And they admitted to it as well, didn't
they? They did. They said that they were charged with other stuff, but told the police that they did Guildford rather than the other people.
We'll obviously talk about that now.
We'll talk about that later. But sieges don't really work out well for the IRA. It doesn't work out. I think they were looking for planes and stuff to get helicopters to get them out of them.
Yeah, I wonder, but why do people do that? Like has that ever worked? Sieges, people looking for planes and being.
I have to confess, I've never been in the situation.
Have you not? Munich, like, do you remember in the Olympics?
Yeah, 72.
Did they get a plane? I think
they did, but there was a botched rescue attempt. And they killed a lot of the Israeli.
But I think the Palestinian, was it the PLO who did that? And
Black September, I think was the official name of the group.
Was it? Yeah.
But they were Palestinians.
But they got away, though, didn't they?
They were brought to an airport and they were going to be flown out.
Yeah.
And something went wrong, and I think the German police. There was a whole the big documentary about.
But a lot of the kidnappers got away, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I think they did.
And the Steven Spielberg movie Munich is about them actually.
Yeah.
Going after those people who got away.
Starring a great actor, Kieran Hines, Munich.
Oh, Kieran Hines is in Munich.
He's very good in Munich.
Oh, right, okay.
Good looking actor.
Bana was in it, wasn't he? But going back to Dr. Herrema, though, it was it must have been horrendous. It was 36 days. And like right beside where I live as well, like, in Monasterevin, like, so, and all for Rose Dugdale and Kevin Mallon.
And it all failed spectacularly. Rose Dugdale did her time, did she?
Yeah, Rose did her time. She continued her involvement in the IRA afterwards.
That's right, yeah.
She did. She only died was it a couple of years ago?
Yes, unrepentant.
Yeah, absolutely. Eddie Gallagher, I'm not sure what happened. He obviously went to prison for a long time, I think. I couldn't tell you exactly what happened to or Marion Coyle, for that matter. Both of them were sentenced for what they did. I don't know. Did Herma, did he stay in Ireland after? Did he go back to Netherlands?
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. So it was,
but it's interesting because the IRA activity down south was kind of frowned upon, wasn't it? By the IRA, were reluctant to get involved, do stuff down south, were they? I mean,
they were like.
They were training and stuff like that.
And there was a bit of robbery going on. Obviously, Rose Dugdale was captured for the Rossborough House paintings.
Right.
And then you had other kidnappings as well, like Dr.Tiede in the early 80s.
Yes, remember that.
And then when he was. He escaped or was freed. There was a guard killed and a soldier killed. Right. That was the early 80s, So there was a...
And Shergar.
Well, no one's ever been... Shergar, 1983.
Shergar, kidnapping of Shergar as well.
I remember Shergar. I would have been like...
there was a ransom demand for Shergar.
There
was a ransom demand for Shergar, wasn't there?
Definitely killed. Definitely killed.
Yeah.
I'd say they would have got a ransom... Because Shergar was he the most famous flat?
He was, yeah. He was
flat race horse.
Yes.
At a time.
And he was worth gazillions for his stud
breeding
value.
And all that. Yeah. I was actually down the National Stud there recently in Kildare. Worth a visit. So like the IRA were doing some things in the south,
But it was bad for the image, was it?
They and plus they were censored as well.
Yeah.
The IRA and Sinn Féin were censored. You could. So when people like Gerry Adams like when I was growing up, to hear Gerry Adams, you'd have to watch the BBC. Like you wouldn't hear his voice in RTE for years. Any spokesperson of Sinn Féin.
The unionists would say that a lot of unionists say during the Troubles that the Southern government and Southerners were complicit and they were the place where the IRA went to run to and they were a safe haven for the IRA.
And obviously with the extradition thing, like the South were refused in pretty much all cases to extradite people.
Yeah.
To North, and that was some of the basis. And there was this belief, and to some degree it did happen that the IRA was using the south as a launching pad into to the north. So the security wasn't seen as strong enough or robust enough. So there was this belief that they were complicit in.
They avoided, apart from the Dún Tiede, they avoided killing Garda or Irish soldiers or any sort of contact with Irish soldiers and stuff like that.
Yeah, but obviously Jerry McCabe. Now this is like going back in the 90s, but there were a few guard fatalities. There was a prison. Brian Stack was a prison officer. He was wounded and subsequently died from his wounds. There was a senator, George. I think it's Fox, is it? From Monaghan, Fine Gael senator. He was killed in the 70s. So, but I think he was the only member of the Oireachtas that was killed. So look, there wasn't that much in terms of violence. Not
I remember the assassination of Christopher Ewart Biggs, was the British ambassador.
76, yeah.
Was that 76? Yeah. He was the British ambassador.
He was the British ambassador, yeah.
He was blown up, and it was Phoenix Park, was it? Wherever he was, I can't remember.
Yeah.
So but it didn't have much activity downside. But this was a cause célèbre.
But this wasn't an IRA.
Sanctioned.
The people were members of the IRA at the time,
right?
But it wasn't sanctioned by the leadership of the IRA. So it was, and I think in the trial he had a right go at Joe Cahill and other leaders of the IRA. Eddie Gallagher, like saying he was
Eddie Gallagher did.
So he really kind of, and even when he was in prison, he was in Portage prison, and he wasn't in the IRA wing. He would have been with the INLA or extreme left people. The kind of hard left kind of criminals or political prisoners, as they're called.
Right.
He never associated with the IRA in prison. So he abandoned all his kind of contacts with the IRA by then, really.
You're listening to the Irish History Boys with me, Tim McGarry, and Dr. Cormac Moore, podcast where we explore Irish history inspired by what was reported 100 years ago and 50 years ago in the pages of the Irish News. You can get in touch with us anytime on WhatsApp or email. Let us know if you have any questions or comments. If you want to tell me I'm right and Cormac Moore is wrong and stuff, please feel free. Please feel free. Send us WhatsApp message or voice note to 07483 313 842 or drop us an email at irishhistoryboys@gmail.com. We're staying with 1975 because we're going to talk about another very controversial case, the Guilford bombings and the Guilford Four. And this is October the 11th, 1975. Guilford bombing accused had drinks with me on night of blast. Girl.
It just says girl.
Girl, I like that, yeah. This is Paul Hill, a Belfast man accused of murdering 7 people in the Guildford and Woolwich pub bombings, was in Southampton on the night of the blast, his girlfriend told the trial yesterday. She said he was out drinking with her from 7:30 on the night of the Guildford bomb, presumably therefore could not have been guilty of the crime. Paul Hill, along with Jerry Conlon, Paddy Armstrong and Carol Richardson, were convicted, however, of the Guildford and Woolwich bombings. And this is the bombings took place in 74.
74,
So this is the trial in 75. All 4 of them convicted.
And then subsequently, the Maguire 7. They were convicted of being involved in the actual explosives, getting the explosives ready and all of that for the bombs. And they didn't get released until 91.
1989.
No, the Maguire 7, 91.
Oh, the Maguire 7, right.
And the Guilford Four, 89, but it still took 2 more years for the...
Right, the Guilford Four were in jail for 15 years.
15 years,
and it was a sad case. Jerry Conlon was a young fella who'd actually been exiled by the IRA for he's a bit of a bad boy. He had a bit of a petty criminal.
Yeah.
And was sent to London and met up with Paul Hill and various people. He was accused of the pub bombings, and his father, Giuseppe Conlon, went over shocked to find that his son is accused of IRA membership and very serious crimes. Went over to get him legal representation. And I think he stayed with the Maguires, who were cousins, who were relatives.
They were a distant relation. They weren't close relatives anyway.
And Giuseppe Conlon then ended up being arrested because they said the Maguires were involved, and the Maguires had
It's called a bomb factory.
It was called Auntie Annie's Bomb Factory.
Yeah,
Annie Maguire, and she was
Auntie Annie's Bomb
Auntie
Factory.
Annie's Bomb Factory. I think it was a headline in the Daily Mail or one of those right-wing English papers, which of course turned out to be absolute nonsense. But poor Giuseppe Conlon, Jerry Conlon's father, died in jail, and he was quite a sick man, and he actually died in prison. It was a real tragedy. And the Guilford Four were not found innocent until 1989. Lawsuits were appealed, even though, as we discussed earlier, the Balcombe Street gang, who were an IRA gang, who were real IRA operatives in London, were captured at the end of a siege. The Balcombe Street gang, and they, in their statements to the police, said we carried out the Guilford and
there was actually forensic evidence as well. I think there was fingerprints that could have actually linked what the Balcombe Street gang did with the Guildford and Woolwich bombings. But we've been there before. We obviously discussed the trials of the Birmingham Six. It's the same thing happening again. Confessions, beating out of people, threats. Like it's interesting what Paul Hill says. He says that he made a series of statements to the police, falsely admitting he was one of the bombers to protect Eugenia Clark, whom he loved very much. He alleged police threatened to screw his chick up for the bombings if he did not admit to them.
Right.
So there was, and obviously a lot of this is discounted. Like when you do admit something,
that makes things very difficult.
Yeah, you let's presume the court of law doesn't know how to extract it. Obviously people are claiming that we want to rescind that statement, and we were coerced into saying and all that has happened. But you'd imagine they're going, the police are uprights here, and they wouldn't do.
Well, I think all judges were I think it was Lord Denning said it would be an appalling vista if the police were beating confessions out of people, which is what I don't know.
It was what happened though.
100%.
And they've never been brought to justice,
the police officers.
They were acquitted, when it and it was absolutely gross miscarriage of justice that they were responsible for. They committed perjury. They're making up some of the statements. They were rewriting on them. So they were changing them around. They were so obviously that was a really gross abdication of their duty, beating them up, torturing them, lying in court, all of this stuff. And yet they walk free.
And presumably they got away because the atmosphere at the time, particularly after the Birmingham.
This is after the Guilford Four had been released and the case quashed. This is after, and there was there was prosecutions brought against them, but they were acquitted. So you'd wonder so what lessons were really learned, and what's that say to future officers of the law if they want to bend the rules a bit, So.
I don't know if you watch a TV program called 24 Hours in Police Custody, which is a very good Channel 4 program, where they investigate all sorts of crimes, but everything now is not only recorded, it's filmed. So every single police interview. And this didn't come in until apparently under Margaret Thatcher. Couldn't believe that the police would be doing.
That's two good things you were talking about. No,
she didn't. She introduced tape recording, so the police had the tape recorder, and apparently the police at the time were not terribly pleased that they had to record the intervys because they were very good at getting confessions out of people without the necessity of
due process.
Due process, and maybe twisting a few arms or whatever, and then
literally,
literally, and now of course everything has to be recorded and filmed and everything. But in those days, basically, we've got 4 Irish lads, beat the crap out of them, get a confession, job done.
And Carl Richardson, an English girl.
Of course,
So I think you mentioned this before when we were talking about the Birmingham Six. Growing up, before these kind of the convictions were quashed, I heard a lot about the Birmingham Six, but I only really heard about Guilford Four once they're pretty much released.
Yeah,
the campaign definitely wasn't as long or as extensive as the Birmingham Six. Maybe I just wasn't picking up on it. But do you remember?
I do remember them both being hand in hand, and I remember even my mother, a very soft nationalist, knew that was a terrible crime had been committed against the Maguires, and it was clear that this lovely woman, and everybody knew she was not in no way involved in the IRA.
Crazy when you think about
absolute nonsense. And the poor Giuseppe Conlon. passing away and coming over to London. It was a bit of a tragedy, and it was made into the film In the Name of the Father,
which is a great movie. I love it.
Yeah, well, it's a movie. Yeah, so
of course. It's a very enjoyable movie, and obviously the cast is like
Pete Postlethwaite as Giuseppe Conlon.
Daniel Lewis, arguably the greatest actor living. As Jerry Conlon.
Jerry Conlon didn't like it. Jerry Conlon, he didn't like it because there was a scene. I think there was a couple of scenes with his in a cell with his father, which clearly didn't happen and stuff. And he thought it was all a bit too schmaltzy and made up and stuff. And it was actually a very, very good play by Martin Lynch and somebody whose name I temporarily forget, and I do apologise. Called In the Name of the Sun. It was on at the Lyric there, and it's the life of Jerry Conlon after he was released in '89. Fascinating stuff, and clearly screwed up by the whole experience, shall we say, and had a life that was a bit of a roller coaster afterwards.
Tell me what?
Well, he was released after 15 years, so 1989, and he was still in his early 30s then,
was he?
He's 35, 36. I think he was only early 20s when he was convicted.
I would have thought he'd be closer to 40.
No, I think he was sort of mid to late 30s by the time he was released. And famously, he was the guy who come out of when they were found innocent and was come out and said the Birmingham Six were next, and they were, that they grave injustice and all of that.
And it took 2 more years, Birmingham Six.
It took 2 years. It took the 91.
And Maguire 7, as I said.
And they lost an appeal and all that in early as well. But they eventually got released. But Jerry, a troubled man, shall we say, and was given a lot of money eventually by the government.
Was it a lot of money? Was it?
It was quite a lot of money, which he managed to. He basically put up his nose, and he drank heavily and shagged about and misbehaved, shall we say. And he's open about this. It's a really, really good play. I think it's a sad play. It's very poignant. It's very funny. But it's obviously he's a very, very troubled individual. And the play is, I would recommend it if you ever get a chance to see it. In the Name of the Sun. Brilliant.
And he died at a relatively young age as well, didn't he?
He died when he was 60. I think he got to 60. But obviously,
how would you not be affected by 15 years in prison, knowing that you're totally innocent. And like I am going a lot on what I was watching the Name of the Father, the way they were treated as well, and
don't take your history from movies, my friend.
True. I don't know exactly how they were treated in I know from, remember I said I met Paddy Hill before when he was in Dublin at the debate, and he explained how he was treated, and it was awful, like the experience they had. And how do you get over it? How do you live with that? Like all the money in the world is going to compensate for that those last years.
And he was fated by various people who thought he was a movie star once. Well, not a movie star, but he was obviously associated with a movie which he didn't like, and it went to his head and stuff. But people thought he was great, and he was out with the great and the good. And then he got into drugs, and it was downward spiral. It was all pretty sad,
But it was. I remember those moments though, like there were. It was a shocking miscarriage. And there was 3 big cases, one after the other. These miscarriages of justice, and it did really rock the British justice system and people's faith in it. Because when we were discussing the Birmingham Six, I think it was a few weeks ago, we were discussing about the Irish News accepted that these are convicted, that justice was done. Even we really disapprove of the stories about how they were treated and police custody and all that, beatings up and all that. But even the guilty are deserve proper treatment. But they're accepting it. And so most people would generally have at this stage accepted that when due process is followed correctly. That people are the people who perpetrated these crimes were actually brought to justice. And when they find out it wasn't the case, like, how can you have faith in a justice system that does that?
But it seems to be the English justice system rather than the Northern Ireland justice system, because I made this point before. There are actually very few miscarriages of justice that on that scale.
Except for internment, which is...
Well, no, I'm not justifying internment. That's imprisonment without trial, so there's no trial. But in terms of people who are convicted by the courts, even diplomat courts, non-jury courts, very, very...
You were a fan of those, weren't you?
Absolutely not. Well, if I'm honest with you, right, okay. My brief experience as a lawyer, if I'm guilty, right, I'd go in front of a jury because they might let you off. If I'm innocent, I want a judge, because the judge will know the law. Genuinely.
So the judges don't make mistakes?
Very rarely. Juries are very capable of making mistakes. So if I was guilty, you might get off with it. Yeah.
Never trusted people.
No, God, no. Have you seen the elections recently? People vote. You don't let them on juries. You're mad.
But judges.
No, the slightly serious point is in terms of that scale of things, and the hundreds of thousands of IRA men and UVF men and all convicted through the courts, but very, very few of them ever said, come out and go, I was completely innocent. There were a few cases. The UDR4 and stuff was controversial. There were a couple of cases, but they're not on that sort of massive scale. And we know as well that the RUC did employ, shall we say, dubious tactics, particularly in the early days of the Troubles. That there was a lot of, strong arming and, torture and things went on. Castlereagh, a lot of that went on.
After, isn't it?
But the number of miscarriages of justice that you get, in the scale of the sort of the Birmingham 6, Guilford Four stuff, weren't, it's fewer, shall we say.
Well, a lot of the critics say of judges would say that they're upholders of the state.
Yeah.
Which would be anti-Republican, anti-nationalist potentially anyway. So how would you get a fair?
They were being targeted and shot by the.
Yeah, but regardless, how would they be fair?
Yeah.
How would they could they be fair?
Yeah. Well,
towards Republicans, towards and people who did not believe in the state, and yes, who would target judges.
Yeah.
How would they get a fair trial with judges?
Well, then you ask how does Martin McGuinness get away with? He got membership of the IRA and didn't even get convicted of that.
No, by asking, but would you understand why some people, Republicans, nationalists, say how could we have faith in a judge deciding our fate as opposed to a jury?
Yeah.
I mean, this judge is a representative of the whole system we're against.
Yeah, but the judges. They're always going to be.
It's
you get a jury in Northern Ireland. Can you get a fair jury in Northern Ireland? Because if you're a Republican or a loyalist, you get depends how many.
Well, as you said, maybe you don't want to get a fair one.
So that's my advice. If you're guilty,
go for a jury.
Go for a jury, Cormac. All right.
Yeah. I'll bear that in mind. I'd rather I'd have the jury.
Have a word with me. I'll give you free legal advice.
So anyone who knows, if I ever on trial, I ask for a jury.
I heard him on a podcast once.
He said if you did ask for a jury, so, okay.
Have we time for one more story? We have time for one more story. What do we want to go for? Do you want to talk about this? Sir James Craig's chance, October the 6th, 1925, will be reckoned, because it mentions a good friend of mine. October the 6th will be reckoned memorable in the annals of Ireland for all the time to come. This day is the 34th anniversary of the death of Charles Stuart Parnell, or Parnell, if you're picky. We may also recall the fact that on the 6th of October 1916, Mr. John Redmond addressed his faithful constituents in Waterford for the last time. In that speech, he declared his own and followers' determination that a settlement of the Irish question based on partition would never again be discussed by them with English politicians, owing to the abnormal conditions prevailing after the insurrection of that year. A plan providing for an experimental, safeguarded and purely temporary severance of North East Ulster from the rest of Ireland. The 6 counties to remain for a specified time under the control of the British Parliament, and Irish representation of Westminster remain unaltered, has been entertained for a few months, until the Tories began to realise that partition on such terms could not be maintained for half a year. So this is...
Well, it's more about 6th of October, big events happening.
Yes.
And Craig was over in London, with the begging bowl out, to get money off the British Treasury. And see, was there any announcements? Was the 6 counties going to be treated differently than it was under the Government of Ireland Act? There's really the Irish News editorial kind of probably flowering out the editorial a bit by saying, this October 6th has been the great Charles Parnell died. There's been John Redmond finally realised he couldn't trust the British government and said so in Waterford. And this is when kind of is this going to be a big day as well? And it wasn't really, it wasn't.
It wasn't.
It was. Were there going to be any changes made to the Government of Ireland Act? What was going to be the new Treasury arrangements with the North? And so it was ongoing over the first number of years of partition, like the creation of Northern Ireland. James Craig was, it was a very insecure time. The financial situation was desperate. We have to remember say 75 years from around 1840 to about 1915, around the end of the First World War, Belfast was a prosperous, thriving city. You had the linen trade, you had shipbuilding. You had
one of the biggest cities in the UK, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was an economic powerhouse. And but that all kind of evaporated after around the time of partition. So the linen trade is in internal decline. It's so people are you can actually get cheaper products like cotton anywhere you want now. You can actually man has been able to create synthetic fibers. So who wants to pay for expensive linen? And there was a whole industry, massive industry. Loads of women were employed on the linen trade.
Massive in Belfast.
Massive in the north. And shipbuilding, it did have some periods where it fluctuated, but we did not ever see the great days of past. They were gone. So economically, it was
you lose one ship and suddenly people get a bad image.
Yeah, what's that about? Huh? I know it was his maiden voyage, but yes. So then Northern Ireland needs money. It can't survive without constantly going to England and new rules have to be agreed with the Treasury.
Well, it's interesting. 100 years on, the situation still prevails, except that now that the Sinn Féin and the DUP agree they should go to London and ask for more money all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
we've always been a basket case. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but it was you could say an unfortunate timing because the economic powerhouse that Belfast was never recovered really.
Yeah.
Now you can explain different reasons. Like the linen trade is nothing to do with any political decision really. Like maybe there was too much dependency on it, but it was this golden cow that the North benefited from. But it just died a death because you could get cheaper and as good quality. Maybe you could argue maybe not as good quality, but it just wasn't a viable industry.
Yeah.
With new technologies and cheaper products and the way you could get products around the world a lot easier by then. So and even shipbuilding, shipbuilding had its day. You got airplanes, you got different modes of transport. So it just wasn't investment in shipbuilding there on in. So it was kind of unfortunate that its two main pillar industries were kind of
taken away.
So for massive blows, one of them never to recover, and it never got over that. And
we're only a few years away from the Depression and all of that, and
exactly, So this story is more about what's the big news from Craig, what's he going to come back with for me. And it wasn't much really, and there also was this talk about the specials. And we definitely have to have a full episode on the specials,
the B specials,
the A, B, and C specials. So they were meant to be a temporary force, to
the poor A's and C's never get much publicity, do they?
Well, the A's were permanent; they were pretty much part of the RUC, and but the B specials, because there were so many of them, and the elements were in the B specials. Even the training they received was a lot less. But around this time, there was the specials were meant to be only temporarily there to kind of bring back law and order to the north. So you could argue that the law and order being brought back to the north from the summer of 22. There was no need for the specials.
Yeah.
Of course, Craig never said that. He said, there's always threats. So they're lining up in the border regions. The Free State's going to invade us. And that wasn't just Craig. It was a lot of the extreme elements.
Right.
Like people like John Nixon and other people were saying
they liked their own police force. And and
so
it was also putting a lot of money.
It was a paramilitary force in many ways.
But also putting a lot of money in boys' pockets as well.
And it all paid for by the British government. So every year they had to go and ask for a renewal of the specials, and it was always a big debate. Can you justify keeping the specials?
Right.
There's no there's peace, whether it's a stale peace is another thing, but there's a lot of peace in the north. And Craig was always saying, well, the only reason why there's peace is because there's so many specials. So that was kind of the big debate, kind of around fiscal issues that was happening at the time.
Right. And the 6th of October, Charles Stewart Parnell. 34th anniversary. Kind of you go, what? 34th anniversary?
And he was a young man.
1891.
He was only 45.
Yeah, I think he was 45, 46. Exhaustion. Yeah. And
from what?
Well, he was a beaten and shattered man by 1891. Didn't he stand for election?
Stand for a lot of elections, and he was.
But this is after the scandal of.
And he had a weak heart. Like he's had a family history of heart problems. His dad died very young as well, and I think it was heart failure ultimately that he died of.
political disaster.
Heart failure, 45. It's still,
yeah.
Even for a time, I'd imagine.
But I think I remember I was reading something when I was doing A-level history.
You got an A.
I did get an A-level history.
I think you've mentioned that before.
But he'd had the whole scandal. He'd been removed as head of the Irish Parliamentary Party, and he was trying to make a comeback. And I think the books I read, he was kind of travelling around the country and doing
in bad weather
and getting soaked and all of that.
And in Kilkenny and Sligo and other places.
Going all over the place, and it was just.
And the Catholic Church had turned their backs to him.
Yeah.
The GA stood by him, but the Catholic
GA
Church
stood by him.
Well, GA was only a new organisation. It nearly actually went under because of its support for Parnell and because of economic decline as well in the country. A lot of emigration and things are happening, but yeah, so the GA stood by. Like when he died, there was a Hurley clad procession on the way to Glasnevin. So it was a very tragic, a great man.
Yeah,
Charles Parnell.
Even though the Irish News were set up to oppose him.
But I think here that they're I'm sure they're. Redmond
they're
was
apologising now. Is this a small apology?
Redmond was a Parnell light, So I think they'd gone full circle when it came to Parnell anyway.
Yeah. So what was the pro-Parnell paper? Was it Freeman's Journal?
Freeman's Journal would have been pro-Parnell.
And where are they now? As opposed to the Irish News. God bless them.
They went bust in 24.
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah, because of the.
The Belfast rival was the Belfast Morning News, which the Irish News superseded.
Ah, right, okay. The Irish News superseded, says the representative of the Irish News.
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't have opposed Parnell, that's all I'm saying. Parnell. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this episode of the Irish History Boys. Join us again. We'll see you next time.
Until next time.